Hey, thanks for checking out my video. I'm Olivia, and today I'm going to show you 3 of my easy go-to summer looks. These looks are in no way original. They've been done a million times before. There's probably a ton of similar tutorials on the internet, but I still thought it'd be fun to put this video together just to give you some inspiration for some summery looks. I feel like a lot of the time I sit down to do my makeup lately, I'm thinking of ways to amp up a look. What kind of color combinations can I do? What multi-chromes would make this look even more exciting? But sometimes it's fun just to revisit those classic, really basic, easy looks. So I don't know, I guess I hope this video just gives you a little inspiration to maybe try something more basic. If you feel like you're in a bit of a makeup funk, sometimes it's nice just to let the actual shadows inspire you and not the complexity of a look. I feel like I'm making this bigger than what it needs to be. It's really not that deep. I just hope this is a fun video for you. Or maybe if you're a beginner and you're just looking for some inspiration, then I hope this helps. But if you're interested in seeing 3 summery looks, including how I created this basic look here, then just keep watching. Alright, so let's get into the first tutorial. So the first kind of look that's always a fun summery go-to is a neutral bronzy lid with a pop on the lower lash line. So I feel like the most popular variation of this look is neutral with a pop of blue. I even feel like there was a time in the beauty community where if you were kind of around in the beauty space and you were following along with the releases, it was like almost every palette coming out a few years ago was neutral with a pop of blue. There was definitely a lot of those back in the day, so I feel like if you've been kind of collecting makeup or purchasing makeup for 5 or 6 years now, you probably have at least 1 or 2 palettes that have that color scheme. So that combination might be a little overdone to some, but I also feel like the combination was very popular for a reason. It just really gives kind of beachy, summery vibes. Again, if you have those kind of rich browns on the top and either really deep or even bright blue, it's just such a beautiful contrast. It just kind of gives oceany vibes, or if you have a little sparkle in the look as well, I feel like that's really perfect for like a summery date night look. There are obviously other combinations you can do that still kind of incorporate the strategy. Recently, I did a look that was peachy on the top with a really bright green on the lower lash line. I thought that was really fun. I love that look too. So you don't have to stick with the blue on the lower lash. I'm going to be doing that for my look today though, just because I feel like it's such a classic go-to. And I don't know, I feel like something about a nice rich blue is very eye-catching, it's flattering, and it's really fun. So that's what I'm going to do today. Like I said, there's probably a ton of palettes that have that color combo. You can also definitely mix and match. I'm going to be using this very old palette today for my look. This is the Urban Decay Beached palette. And basically the whole color scheme of this palette is that combination, just like nice warm neutrals with a pop of blue. So I always like using this palette for that type of look. Again, this is very old. Please let me know if you remember this palette, if you were around when this came out. I almost want to say this was even like pre-2020. I honestly can't even remember, but I'm going to prime my eyes and we'll get into the look. Actually, before we do that, I'll show you what I'm wearing on my face already. I feel like I'm looking a little patchy here. I'm not really loving the makeup situation, but overall, from far away, I feel like I look nice and bronzy and glowy. But I'm using the Milk Makeup Cream Bronzer. This is in the shade Baked. I also went in with these iconic London Illuminator drops. Then I topped over the bronzer with this kind of multi-purpose powder. This is from Hiiii, I think. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that, but this was definitely like a BoxyCharm or Ipsy thing. This is the Radiate Shimmer Bronzer. And honestly, it's kind of like a bronzer, blush, and highlight all in one. I don't feel like the pans are really big enough to just use one product. So I kind of just went in and swirled my brush around. I learned pretty quickly that this is definitely a little bit too dark for me. It might be maybe a bit better in August, but I don't tend to tan that much. But that's kind of the patchiness I feel like that's going on. Besides that area and like it being a bit too dark, I feel like it is a really pretty product. I wanted a little bit more blush though, so then I went in with this trio from BH and Doja Cat, and I used the center shade here. I don't know if these have like separate names, maybe on the little slip it came with, but either way, this is what I used for blush. And then just as I get ready, I'm using this lip balm from NARS. This is in the shade Laguna. So yeah, I'm going to prime my eyes and we'll get started on the eye look. Alright, so I think to start, I'm going to go in with the shade Salt up here. So I'm going to use this to kind of set the very top part of the eye and to brighten a little bit. I'm just going to kind of keep it, for the most part, under the brow. I think that's a little shimmery too, so I don't really want that everywhere. So now I'm going to take the shade Daybreak and I'm going to go pretty much all over the crease with that. shade a little bit higher because I know I'm going to go somewhat heavier on the lower lash line. So I'm just taking it on a fluffier brush and really kind of blowing it out all over the crease. Also taking it on a more dense brush and then packing it on a little bit heavier in the outer corner. For the shimmers, you can really go either way. You can use more of like a ready bronze shade like this or more true bronze like this. I feel like both would be really fun with this look, but I think I'll start with this one and just see how it looks. This one's called 16th Street, and I'm just gonna use my finger and I'm gonna put that all over. I might actually top over it a little bit with Heat Wave as well, which is the slightly more red one. I feel like that will go with the matte color a bit better. Yeah, I actually really like those two mixed together. I feel like that's perfect. Alright, it's looking a bit messy, so I'm just gonna try and blend everything out. I also think the beauty of this look, or I guess like really any bronzy look, you could really just blow it out. Because it's not like super colorful, it is a bit deep, but it's not the absolute smokiest. I feel like if it is a little bit blown out, you can just kind of act like you're going for the messy, summery vibe. Kind of gives like an undone look, like you've already been out in the makeup, having a good time, so it's just kind of a little bit worn in. I don't know if I'm describing that in the best way, but hopefully you're picking up what I'm putting down. So yeah, I like where that is so far. That's pretty much gonna be the top. I'm gonna start the bottom by putting something in my waterline, and then I'll go in with more shadow. So since I'm doing a blue lower lash, I thought it'd be good to do blue in the waterline as well. That's just a really nice way to amplify the color and make it pop a little bit more. Another option you could do if you wanted it to pop even more would be to do like a blue mascara, and then you can really go all out with the blue. You can also kind of play around with those combinations. Like if you want it to be more subtle, you can leave the lower lash blank and do just a blue mascara. You could do just a neutral color in the waterline, black mascara, and then blue shadow. So there's definitely a couple ways to play around with it depending on how much you want that color to pop on the lower lash. So if you're really not wanting to commit to a lot of color, again, you could do something a lot more simple and subtle with just the blue mascara. Especially if it's a dark blue, I feel like that's something you don't really notice unless you're up close. So that is a great way just to introduce a bit of color if it's not something you're usually into. For today's look though, I am going to do a blue in the waterline and definitely a blue shadow in the lower lash line. And I don't even know if I have a blue mascara. I think I do, but I'm going to do a black mascara. So I pulled for these two blues. I think either would be a really good option. This one is the shade Chaos from Urban Decay. Don't know if they make this anymore because this is definitely super old, but this is more of like a true, just vibrant blue shade. This one from LA Girl is in the shade Electric, and it's a little bit on the brighter side. I'm probably going to use a combination of the two blues on the lower lash line. And I feel like, I think the LA Girl one would be a little bit more fitting. So I'm just going to go in with that. Actually, I might do the Urban Decay one just like between the lashes. And that way the shadow might have a little bit extra something to stick to. This would also help kind of intensify that blue and really make it pop. All right, so I'm gonna start with Plunge, and I'm gonna put that on the outer half of the lower lash line. This is such a pretty shade. I feel like the summertime just makes me crave like the really rich blue shades. Like even all over the eyes as a smoky eye, that would be so pretty. And I'm thinking I might do a winged liner. So I don't mind if this shade goes down a little bit farther because I feel like it's going to be a little bit more of a bolder look. You obviously don't have to bring it down like this far if you don't want it to be super intense. You can definitely go a lot softer with the application. I'm just going to send it though. I love that blue shade. I kind of want to use that all over, but I do want to go in with Double Dip on the inner part. Taking that shade on a slightly fluffier brush. Just kind of bring that sparkle down a little bit more. And again, I'm okay if it looks like just a little bit messy. I feel like that could be a really, just honestly pretty detail, especially in the lower lash line with shimmers. I just really like how that looks. I just took the slightest amount of plunge. I'm just blending the outer part a little bit more too. I just feel like summer is meant for shimmer. So I know it looks a little bit unbalanced now, but again, I think I'm gonna do a winged liner so it'll kind of even everything out, and a lash. That will also help. To finish off the eyeshadow look, I'm gonna go in with Salt on the inner corner. I'm gonna re-intensify the brow bone just a little bit. Now you could leave the look here, or if you're wanting even more impact, maybe you're going out at night, maybe you just want something really bold, you could go in with a product like these. These are from BH Cosmetics, so they're obviously very old. These are not available anymore, but it's just a liquid shadow, so you can really get them from anywhere at this point. I feel like a lot of brands have products like these now that are probably even better formulas than these. But this is what I have in my collection, so I wanted to reach for these. I feel like a liquid shadow like this is just a really good way to add, again, even more impact. A lot of the time the formulas have a lot more sparkle than what you might get in a typical shimmery eyeshadow. So I feel like these are a great way to add a little extra pop. You can also skip over the powder shadow on the lower lash line and just go in with something like this. I feel like part of the beauty of a liquid shadow, besides the impact it gives, is also just ease of use. Something like this would be a really quick way to get this effect, but again, a little bit more and probably even a little bit faster. So again, you can definitely leave the look here, or you can go in with just the liquid shadow, or you can also mix them and again, get that really high impact look. So I don't really feel like I need any more, but why not? I'm just gonna go in with a little bit of this liquid shadow, just on a brush. Keep in mind these will be dried out because they are very old, but I feel like I could still get a little bit of something out of these. Maybe I'll just go right in. That might be a mistake, but I'm just gonna blend it out with the brush. That is so pretty. Yeah, I love that. I know it looks crazy right now because I don't have any mascara or anything, but the effect of the liquid shadow just adds just a little bit extra. I love this. Very summery. It's giving me the summer vacation vibes. So I'm gonna finish up the look off camera with some lashes, maybe a winged liner, and then I'll be back to show you everything when it's complete. Okay, and here's the finished look. I love how it turned out. Again, this is kind of like a go-to look for me in the summer. It's just such an easy and pretty way to incorporate some color, but still getting kind of the bronzy summery vibes that I often want around this time of the year. So to finish up the look, I just went in with a pair of these lashes. These are from New Cali Beauty. I didn't want anything super heavy for the lash because I didn't want it to like overtake the entire look, but I feel like adding the lash and having the liner detail really helped balance out the lower lash line because I did go pretty heavy on the lower lash. I feel like it was a good choice though. I'm really happy that I added all those little details. I feel like it came together really nicely. For the lip combo, there's no judgment on this channel, please. I used the lipsticks that actually came out with this palette, so that probably gives you an idea of how old they are, and I probably shouldn't be using them, but I did. And yes, I still have these. They're just so stunning from Urban Decay. I really miss when they would come out with like creative, just comprehensive collections like this. Just like the detail in this packaging is so cute. Very collectible. But these are actually metallized lipsticks from Urban Decay. Definitely not my favorite formula. I'm not really into a metallic lip. I would rather just go for a matte lip or a gloss or an oil. I don't really love the in-between. But again, these came out with the collection, so I feel like they would go really nicely, and they did. I started with the shade Heat Wave, which is a little bit more of like an orangey red color. It just looked a little bit off from the eye look, so then I topped over it with some of this one. This is in the shade Tower 1, and it's almost like an iridescent metallized lipstick. Very pretty, but that's what I used for the lipsticks. And then I just kind of outlined that with this lip liner from Melt. This is in the shade Cinnamon, and it's just kind of this warm brown. So yeah, I think that's just about everything I used to finish up this look. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, I know it's not groundbreaking. This look has been done a million times before, But I find it really fun to revisit those types of trends and styles because, I mean, they were popular for a reason. I think this look came out really beautifully and I feel great in it. So yeah, let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and let's move on to the second look. All right, so we're gonna get into the second look. This one's gonna be pretty much the same as the first look minus the blue and probably minus the wing as well. Excuse my nails, by the way, we've had a couple more casualties. But when I'm thinking of a summery makeup look, the first thing I think of is a bronzy look. It's definitely on the simpler side. You don't need all the bells and whistles like I did with the last look. I feel like a bronzy look is something you could really play up or tone down. You can definitely add some depth to the look. You can add a dark waterline color. It's very easy to go from day to night with a bronzy look. You can get something really sultry. Or you could stick with a bronze eyeshadow that's on the light to mid-tone side if you want to keep it simple and kind of more fresh for daytime. I also feel like a bronzy eye is perfect if you're wanting to wear a bit of a poppier lip and be more adventurous in that department. I feel like it's a lot easier to pair something like that by going simpler on the eyes. So for me, a quick and easy bronzy look is definitely a go-to in the summertime, so I'm going to throw one together today. To create the look, I'm going to be using the classic Natasha Denona Bronze palette. I know I reached for this one in a recent video, but I mean, this is a really summery palette to me. I don't tend to reach for it often throughout the year otherwise. So I'm going to use it again today. There's definitely a lot of other palettes that come to mind when I think of doing a bronze look. You can absolutely achieve something bronzy and summery with several other palettes. In fact, this one's on my vanity right now because I was using it earlier this week too. This is the Warrior palette from Juvia's Place. I feel like why not give it a shout out? It definitely offers those bronzy tones. You can even go a little bit more gold if you're tired of the pure bronze. So this is also a nice option. Let me know in the comments if you have like a go-to palette, if you want something like simple bronze summer. What's your go-to? Anyway, before we get into the eye look, I'll show you the color products that are on my face already. So for bronzer, I'm using Capri Coast by Becca. For blush, I started with the Cheek Dew Serum Blush from ColourPop. This one's in the shade Starfruit. And I focused this on like the center of my cheeks and over the bridge of my nose, just to give me that sort of sunburnt effect. And then I went over top of that with Playoffs from ColourPop. This is from their High School Musical collab. And then my lip balm, just as I'm getting ready, is this one from NARS. This is in the shade Laguna. So yeah, that's pretty much everything on my face. I'm gonna prime my eyes and then we'll get into the eye look. All right, so for the eye look, I think I'm gonna start with the shade Beach all over the crease. I'm wanting to use Magma. I just don't know if I'm gonna use Suntan as well. So I think I'll just start with Beach. I'll see how much definition that really gives me, and if it's pretty light, then I might go in with Suntan. Otherwise, I'll just go right in with Magma. And I'm just taking that on a very fluffy brush. Just kind of putting it all over. I think I will actually go in with Suntan. I'm going to put that on the crease as well using a fluffy brush. I'll just keep it a little bit lower than that first shade. I think this look is going to be pretty quick and easy. This is just a really nice go-to in the summertime because there's so many ways that you can kind of amp it up or mix it up if you're getting kind of bored of it. But if you still like the overall vibes, I feel like one way to kind of switch things up with a look like this is instead of using just a typical classic bronzy shimmer, instead you could substitute like a duochrome or a multi-chrome and put that all over the lid. I feel like a simple look like this is so perfect to do with like a fancy special shade like that because you're not really using too many shades, and if you're putting that shimmer all over the lid, it really showcases the dimension in it. So I feel like using a special shade like that is just perfect in an eye look like this. I'm not going to be doing that today because I just want to stick to the one palette. Just taking Suntan on the lower lash line now. This is another nice way to kind of modify the look as well. If you're wanting something really like light and fresh, a little more daytime, you can skip the lower lash line. You can just keep it in the outer portion. You can also just like not blend it out as far as I did if you want something a little simpler, but I kind of want a little bit of a smoky effect today. So I'm being a little bit more generous with the shade. I honestly don't think I need any of Magma. I kind of like the depth that I have right now. but I really like how it has like a bit of a reddy tone. I feel like it's really beautiful. I might just add a little bit of the shade in the outer corner. I'm not going to go too crazy with it because I think I'm probably going to use like one of these. I don't know, I feel like if I was using True Copper or High Degree, I'd go pretty ham with Magma because like it just goes really well. I'm just going to do a little bit for now and I'll see how that looks. Something about like the reddy brown though is just really drawing me in lately. I'm going to do a little bit on the outer part of the lower lash. Because I don't want this one to take over, but I just want to see how it looked just added in there. I'm just going to blend everything out a little bit now. Alright, for the shimmer, I feel like I need to use True Bronze. Honestly, I don't even think I've touched the shade in the palette yet. It looks like I have not. I am eyeing True Copper because that's a really beautiful shade too, but I feel like given that I'm trying to show you a classic bronze look, I'm going to use True Bronze. I'll see if I want to zhuzh it up with any other shade, but for now I'm just going to do that one all over the lid. I mean, you don't have to go this ham with the shimmer. I really just kind of put it everywhere, but I got excited. I'm adding just a little bit more of suntan in the outer corner and like this outer part of the crease. Okay, so I think for fun, I will go in with just a little bit of True Copper, just between the bronze shade and the matte shade. High Degree would also be a really nice option, again, since the brown we used has a little bit of red in it. But I don't know, I'm kind of eyeing True Copper, so I'm doing just a little bit of that. I don't want it to like overtake the look, although I also feel like it's so similar to the bronze color, I don't know that it could. But either way, I'm not going to put it all over, I just want it in this outer part here. I really like the effect of a shimmery lower lash line, so I'm going to add just a little bit of True Bronze just on the inner part of the lower lash. Definitely get more payoff if you use a finger or spray your brush, but I just want a little kiss of the shim. So this palette doesn't offer much for an inner corner shade for me, so I'm just going to use a highlighter. I'm going to end up using the same one for my face. I'm just kind of between using Electra. This is from the BH Backlight Highlight Palette. This is super old. This is almost like a fun yellowy shade. Or I was going to use the shade Lucky, which is also a bit of a light bronze. And this is from the Illuminating in Ireland palette, also from BH. RIP. Mixing it with Dublin would also be nice. By the way, that is also a really nice way you can kind of mix up a look if you want, again, the classic bronze, but you just want a little bit of a twist. Going in with like a bright pastel inner corner or even like a neon-y inner corner, that would be super fun. And I think because the bronze look is neutral enough, you can kind of go in a few different directions. Like, I feel like this light green highlight would be really cool with it. Again, the yellow would be nice. The pink would be a lot of fun. Just a lot of different ways you can play around with a look like this. I think though I'm gonna go into the Illuminating in Ireland palette. I'm gonna start with Lucky on the inner corner, but I will probably layer some of Dublin. I think Lucky's just gonna be a little bit too deep, even though it's a highlight, but I'll start with that anyway. The tone of that is definitely like perfect. That's really pretty. I'm gonna bring it on my lower lash line just a little bit. And I'm going in with just a little bit of Dublin. You could of course do like a matte inner corner and that would keep the look a little bit more simple too, and it would keep the focus really on the shimmer on your lids. But I thought it'd be fun to play around with these highlights. Let's do a little bit on the brow bone while we're here. Alright, so the last kind of strategy I wanted to mention for kind of mixing up a basic bronze look and either simplifying it or really smoking it out is by adding something on the waterline. If you're wanting something super simple, you just want like an easy, quick daytime look, you could obviously just do nothing on the waterline. That's a good option. You could also do a pastel yellow like this one. You could do a white, and those would just help bring a little bit more brightness to the eye look. If you want to do something a little bit more fun, kind of play around a little bit, you could do a very bright color like this yellow one from Norvina. You can also do something that contrasts a little bit if you want to do like a bright blue or bright green. Or if you want to do something a little bit more smoky and sultry, then you can smoke out the waterline instead. So the classic option for that would be to use a black or really dark brown on the waterline. I'm going to go in with this one. This one's more of a bronzy color. This is the shade Starfire from Urban Decay. This is definitely an old one, but I feel like this color would be perfect with the eye look. I wasn't really feeling a black. I feel like that was kind of boring. I wanted some color in there, but I wasn't quite feeling the vibe of like the bright neon yellow today. I just kind of wanted like a more classic look. So I'm going to go in with this one. I forgot to add the actual highlight on my face, so I'm going to go in with Dublin and Lucky again, and we're just going to get glowy. Do a little extra Dublin, because that Lucky shade is just a little dark. Alright, so I think this is pretty much going to be the look. I'm going to finish up with a lip and a lash, and I'll be back when everything's complete. Alright, so here is the finished look. For the lashes, I just went in with a pair from this new Cali Beauty package. And then for the lips, I think this is the same combo I used for the last look, but I used the Cinnamon Lip Pencil from Melt. And then I used these two lipsticks from Urban Decay. And these are the metallized lipsticks in Heatwave and Tower One. Again, you can really play around with different options. You could skip the lash if you're wanting something a little lighter. Or if you're wanting even more drama than this, you can do the little like inner corner flick. That would look so hot with this look. But I'm going out after this and I don't always trust myself to do a good little inner corner flick, so I didn't want to risk the look today. Again, you can also pair this with a brighter lip too if that's your vibe. I feel like that does often pair well with a simple eye look like this. Not really my vibe for today, or usually. I'm not usually too adventurous with the lipsticks. I've been trying to get myself to be more adventurous in 2026. It's been going okay. Could be better, but really the main win is that I'm using older things, so I'm happy enough with that. But yeah, honestly, it feels like it's been a while since I've done just like a basic bronzy look. And honestly, I feel so pretty in this. I love how the look came out. So yeah, that is gonna wrap up my second go-to look for the summer, and I'll see you in just a second for the third look. All right, so it's time to finish up with the last look. My third kind of go-to look for the summertime is doing just a bright pop of color all over the lid and then adding some sort of wing. There's definitely a lot of ways you can play around with this type of look too. You can do something lighter on the lid and go with a pastel color. You can use a brighter neon, or you can just use a standard bright color. For the look today, I really wanted to use this palette because it's in my basket of shame and I've never touched it. But it's the Planet Spirit palette. This one was the collaboration between Oden's Eye and Batty Bean. This palette definitely gives me the summer vibes. There's a lot of bright colors in here. Honestly, you could do the style of look that I just described with pretty much any shade in this palette. I feel like it works really well with that type of style. For today though, I think the shades I'm really eyeing are the pinks. I might dabble in the orange a little bit, but really the pink is probably going to be the focal point of the look. You can definitely play around a lot with textures for this type of look too. I love an all matte look, especially if we're using brights like this. I find it's just very punchy. It's definitely a bit of a statement look, even though it's really easy to do. You can definitely add some shimmers too if you want a little bit of dimension in the look. And if you're wanting to amp it up even more, kind of like what I said with the bronze look, is you can also use a multi-chrome just all over the lid. That would also be very impactful. Probably in a little bit of a different way than just using like one bright color all over the lid, but definitely a good option for the summertime. I think for today's look, I will use a shimmer, but I also don't want it to be like several different colors. I kind of want it to be like very brightly pink. These shimmers do look pretty dimensional. Like if I were to use this shade, it looks like there's some like greeny yellow specks of glimmer in it. So I don't know if it's going to be exactly the vibe. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but it looks very pink here. but I feel like from different angles it looks a little bit green. I don't know if my camera will really pick it up, but it looks very dimensional, so I'll kind of swatch it out. I'll see how it looks swatched out, and then I'll decide from there. So yeah, that's kind of my third go-to style for the summertime. Before I get into the eye look, I'll show you the color products that are on my face. For bronzer, I started with the Milk Bronzer Stick in the shade Baked, and then I topped over that with this palette from Ace Beauté. This is the Bronzed in Paradise palette, and I just mixed the first two shades here. For blush, I'm using the Patrick Ta Major Headlines Blush Palette. It's pretty reflective, but this is what the palette looks like. Don't look at my room. And I just used the cream and powder of the bright pink shade here. For highlight, I started off with this liquid highlight from Unearthly. This is in the shade Gilded. And then I topped over it with the BH Backlight Highlight Palette, and I used the shade Illusion down here. I'm really into the highlight. I like the combination. The liquid one was really nice on its own, to be honest, but I haven't played with this one yet. And BH hasn't been a brand in how many years? So I feel like you could probably make an educated guess on how old this is. It was time. It was time. And just as I get ready, I'm using this lip balm from NARS. This is the Afterglow Lip Balm in the shade Orgasm, obviously. So yeah, that's everything I'm wearing on my face so far. So I'm gonna prime my eyes and we'll get into the eye look. All right, so my eyes are primed, and I think to start the look, I'm gonna go in with the shade Rescue. I'm gonna put that on a dense but kind of flattened brush, and I'm gonna pack that all over the lid and probably into the crease a little bit too. And then I think I'll deepen it up with a little bit of Sanctuary here. Clearly we're not gonna get a huge amount of depth with this palette, but that's also why I'm gonna add a liner detail because I feel like it'll balance it out a little bit more. But this is definitely more of like a bright poppy look and less so something smoky and super structured. If you really wanted to make this pop even more, I mean, it's already gonna pop, this is pretty bright. But if you wanted a little extra, you could use either an actual like pure white base, or you can use a colored base, like one of those eye paints. If you have one that's the same color of the shadow, that would definitely help it pop even more. I don't think I have either of those. I might have a white base. I don't know. If I do, it's very old, but either way, I feel like the shadow is going to be enough for what I want today. I was going to leave space for the shimmer, but I think I will just put it all over instead. Taking just a little bit more of that shade on a fluffier brush now, and I'm going to blend that out into the crease. I do think it'd be fun to do a look similar to this, but using more colors. I'm just thinking if you did the orange into the pink, into this deeper pink or the purple, that would also be a really fun, bright, summery look. It'd be really easy to do. It'd have probably very similar impact as just using one, but using one is kind of my go-to. It's just always been an easy way for me to incorporate color without being overwhelmed or feeling like I'm doing too many steps if I don't have that much time. It just felt a little bit more true to what I actually do on a day-to-day basis. So I wanted to showcase really the simplicity of this type of look in the video. But I don't know, looking at this palette, I'm definitely feeling inspired to play around with a couple different combinations. This is definitely one I want to play around with more this summer. Because honestly, shame on me for not having touched this since I got it. It's just like a perfect, bright, fun, summery palette. So again, there's a lot of different ways you can play around with a look like this. Honestly, you can leave it here and do just mascara if you want something like super low-key. Well, I don't know if a bright pink is that low-key. You can leave it here and add a lash, and I think that would be super beautiful and impactful with like a nice fluttery lash. I'm gonna add a little bit more on the lower lash line, and again, I'm gonna deepen this up a little bit. I like adding just a touch more dimension, but again, I feel like even just leaving it with a pink is really pretty. I am going to be going in with Sanctuary though. Just taking that on kind of a fluffy brush, but it's still a little bit dense. It's a pretty similar shade, so it's not going to add too much of a difference. I'm also not going to go super ham with it, but I think it does add just a little bit of something. If you like the idea of this type of look, but it's feeling a little bit too bold for you, You could also deepen it up and like ground the look with a dark brown instead of, another pink. Obviously, it wouldn't have the same effect as just going with the full color, but if you're wanting to play around with a look like this, and again, you don't want to commit, using a brown or like a burgundy or black, I think would help make it a little bit more approachable. For the lower lash line, I'm really tempted to use this orange just to mix it up a little bit and not have it fully like monochromatic. But I also feel like I'm into the monochromatic vibes. It keeps the look really simple. It's really easy to do. You need fewer shadows. And I feel like that would be an attractive option to a lot of people in the summer. If you're in a rush, you're not wanting to spend a lot of time. I don't know. The orange would be really pretty. What does my heart tell me? I think I'm going to start with Sanctuary close to the lower lash line. And then I might blend it out with Habitat, or I'll just stick to Rescue. I'm not really sure. The orange would be pretty, but I don't know if it would make it, well, it definitely wouldn't be as cohesive as using the pink. But since they are kind of a similar vibe in tone and brightness, I feel like it would still work. Okay, I'm just gonna do a little bit of Habitat. Just a touch. And I'm adding a little bit more of Sanctuary just because I feel like I really like how they look blended together. I tried not to take it down too far because I didn't want the orange to take over. So here is the shade Fauna. That was the shimmer I was kind of thinking about. It is like a green to pink duochrome. I think my camera's picking it up. I just don't know if it'll work. I feel like layering it on the pink will really help the pink be the prominent like shift in the shade. But I don't know. I really want it to be like mostly a monochromatic look. I think I'm gonna skip the shimmer today. What if I use the shimmer on my inner corner? Maybe I'll do that. And I feel like the green probably won't be that prominent if there's no like base. Ooh, I am gonna layer it a little bit though. It's actually so pretty layered over that pink matte. Uh-oh, I'm gonna get carried away. Let's bring it in just a little bit. Oh, that's really pretty. Should we bring it down? Okay, I'm happy I used that. That's a really pretty shimmer. I've just been so into like the bright matte inner corner. It's just very flattering. I feel like it completes really any look. I haven't been into the shimmery inner corner lately, especially like a chunky shimmer. I just feel like it doesn't really look as good, but this is really pretty. I am happy we went in this direction. Part of me wants to just put it all over because it's super pretty layered on top. But I did have a little bit of a vision for this look and it was as simple as possible. So I'm trying to refrain. I'm just blending out the orange with one of the brushes that I used for the pink. I like the orange, I'm not in love with it. So I'm just hoping this brings a little bit more of the pink into the lower lash line. I don't need to cover up the orange completely. I just want to make it look a little bit more cohesive. I feel like I use that word a lot in my videos, but that is the vibe. It's the vibe we're going for. All right, I like that. I probably should have done the lower lash line last because I'm going to use the tape method to do a wing because I'm not good at freehanding a winged liner, which by the way, that is another way you can kind of play around with the look. I'm going to use a liquid liner today. Obviously, the effect of that is a lot more harsh than using something like an eyeshadow. And in terms of the eyeshadow, you can use a black. It's still a lot more forgiving. If you want a softer effect, you can use a dark brown. That would also be really pretty. I feel like a red or burgundy liner would also be really fun with this. It'll still give you the depth, but then you're still keeping in with the color theme. So there's definitely a lot of different ways you can play around with a look like this. Again, I think I'm just going to use a standard black liquid liner for this look with my tape method. But I'll be back in a second when everything's finished. All right, this is the finished look. I'm using just the same pair of lashes that I wore in the last look. I really like these. So far, they've been super easy to apply. I like the shape of them. I'm assuming this is like a drugstore brand. I don't know if this is only Canadian, but really nice lash. I did go in with a winged liner. Obviously, if you wanted to amp it up, you can go like a little more grunge and alternative, do a bolder wing. You can do something even smaller if you wanted just a little bit of that definition. I just kind of let the liner have a mind of its own and it does what it wants. I definitely said I was gonna get rid of this in like a recent video. This is the one from BH and Doja Cat. This is looking pretty rough. I definitely need to upgrade. I did have a little bit of a liner accident at the front here. I feel like the lashes are kind of hiding it anyway, so it's fine. I also decided to do just a black in the waterline. I felt like it really popped against the bright pink. And I used this one from Koki. This is double-sided. The lid doesn't really go on the liquid liner side anymore for some reason, but it also comes with like a gel side, so I just used that one in the waterline. I feel like it looks really fierce. Every time I do like a really bright pink look, I feel like it just needs a wing liner. I still don't know how I feel about the lip combo. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways you could take it with this type of look. Now that it's like drying and I'm looking at it, I kind of wish I went a little bit lighter, just a little bit more on the nude side. This is not bad though. I'm still happy with how this looks. But I'm using the Anywhere Caffeine lip pencil from Makeup Forever. And the lipstick is the Matte Last Liquid Lip from Pixie. And this one is in the shade Matte Beige. So yeah, I think that is everything I used to finish up the look today. And that is also going to wrap up my third go-to look for the summertime. As usual, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Let me know what you think of the looks. Again, I know they're definitely not original, they're super basic, but they're just kind of favorites for me. I would love to know your summer go-tos. Do you have any specific looks or products or specific palettes you like to use around this time of the year? I'm very nosy, so I would love to know. But anyways, that is going to wrap it up for the video. Thank you so much for spending your time watching it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!